Good evening and welcome back to Real America's Voice Special Election Coverage 2020, Our Republic at Risk. As you know, here we respect your intelligence, we honor you as citizens, and here we provide evidence for what we say. You know, in the last week, the mainstream media has told you time and again that there's no evidence of widespread fraud in the 2020 election.
About tens of millions of unsolicited ballots without any verification measures whatsoever.
Well, we're interrupting this because what the President of the United States is saying, in large part, is absolutely untrue.
This isn't just dangerous. It's nonsensical.
Illegal vote.
Well, I just think we have to be very clear. She's charging, the other side is welcoming fraud and welcoming illegal voting. Unless she has more details to back that up, I can't in good countenance continue showing you this.
I don't know that we have seen the proof of voter fraud in any of these states.
Now, they said this despite serious election irregularities. What they decided to ignore, this team decided to investigate. At Real America's Voice and at Just the News, we told you we will take action. While others complain and criticize, this team went to work. Led by Just the News founder and editor-in-chief John Solomon, Real America's Voice joined forces and they put together a team of 30 journalists on the ground in battleground states to look at election irregularities. Now, this was and is a nonpartisan effort. It is an effort to get the facts. It is an effort to pursue the truth. And it is an effort undertaken in part because Americans deserve to have and must have confidence in the integrity of our elections. Now, the media mantra that there is no evidence of voter fraud in the November 3rd election now faces a real challenge. Several Michigan residents, ranging from a city worker to a former state assistant attorney general, swear under penalty of perjury that they witnessed significant and widespread election tampering in the city of Detroit. And by significant, they insist thousands of ballots were involved. This story and others have been broken by Just the News founder and editor-in-chief John Solomon, who joins us today. John, welcome tonight, and let me begin by asking you, who is Jessy Jacob, and what did she have to say in her sworn affidavit?
Yeah, that's a great question, Eric. So Jessy Jacob is a longtime civil servant who has worked for the city of Detroit for decades. She was assigned in September to work at in the election centers leading up to and including election day and the day after. And in a sworn affidavit where she risks the penalty of perjury, also risks being fired if she were to lie about this, she testified in this affidavit that the morning after the election, she was present at the main election counting center when she saw ballots being backdated, and her bosses were instructing her to do so as well, to backdate ballots to make them look like they came in before the November 3rd deadline so that they could be counted. Now, that's a very significant allegation, and what she says is she is confident that thousands of ballots were backdated. But that's not the only misconduct she says she saw. Going all the way back to September when she was first assigned to the election project, she says she saw election ballots going out and having their dates changed. So you would send, someone had allegedly requested the ballot, you would send it out. For some reason, they were changing the record to make it look like the ballot had been sent out much earlier than the day they were actually mailing it out. In other words, they were committing fraud. She has signed this affidavit. It's been submitted in a court case. And when you hear a single city worker say thousands of ballots she witnessed, she was partaking in, she knows were fraudulent, we all should at least pay attention and expect some form of serious investigation.
Yeah, and John, she's also not alone. I mean, in your story, you also mentioned, just in your story, you mentioned a couple of other affidavits from Alexandra Seeley, from Zachary Larson, from Robert Cushman. And again, I'll remind all of our viewers and all of your readers at justthenews.com, those affidavits, you've actually put those out there.
Absolutely.
So that our viewers and your readers can read them themselves. So tell us, what do those affidavits say, and what else are you learning about what's happening right now in Michigan?
Well, it's fascinating. So the names that you just mentioned, Seeley, Larson, Cushman, they were what is known as Election Day observers. They came, and under the law, they were there as GOP observers. Usually there's a Democrat and GOP observer at each ballot table at each location, so that when ballots are opened and counted, people can look at it and say, yeah, the signature matches, that's a good ballot to count, or hey, there's something wrong with that. Let's put that in a problem pile, and we'll go back and look at it later, often called provisional ballots. These ballot observers said that they were kept from doing their job repeatedly. Wow. They were harassed. They were moved far away. But when they did get glimpses of what was going on, they saw evidence of misconduct and fraud going on. For instance, Zach Larson, who, by the way, is not some just everyday guy in the street. He's a former assistant attorney general for the state of Michigan, a lawyer at the highest levels of the state of Michigan government for a long time before he went into private practice. He said, I saw ballot workers opening up and peeking at who people were voting for and then putting a lot of them into a discarded pile or a problem pile. So he wondered, maybe they were looking, if they saw a Trump name, they put it in a problem pile so it wouldn't count towards Trump's tally. Others saw changes of dates, people's names being added to the verified voter list that weren't on the voter list. So there's a verified list of people you can run against the name against, say, yeah, you're approved to vote. People are adding names based on what they saw on the ballot. All of these people together, when you take what the city worker and these observers saw together, it looks like a pretty orchestrated effort at some form of fraud or misconduct. Now, again, it needs to be investigated, but anyone who says there's no evidence clearly hasn't read these affidavits of these everyday Michigan residents and citizens who attested under penalty of perjury they saw these things.
Yeah, and these people are putting their reputations at risk. They're putting their jobs at risk. They're swearing that this conduct happened, and they're swearing that this wasn't just one or two ballots. They're talking about thousands of ballots here. Give our viewers an update if you can. I mean, this is from Michigan. What else are you and the team finding in Michigan specifically?
Yeah, so one of the things we're doing, and this is an exhaustive and time-consuming process. We may not have results from this for several more days yet, but we have used some computer matching to come up with the names of people who said they voted in Michigan or Wisconsin or Georgia, some of these important contested states, who also filed statements a year or more ago saying they had left those states. They had moved to other states. They're no longer residents of Michigan or Georgia or Pennsylvania. And we're computer matching, and we've come up with a list of several 100,000 people that we would call high-risk voters, meaning they're listed as voting, but it doesn't look like they live in the state anymore. Right. And there's an extensive effort underway to call these people, interview these people, see if in fact they did vote or didn't vote. Maybe they're listed as voting and they never filed their ballot. We're beginning to see some patterns, but we're not yet ready to really divulge any data. We want to do a lot more careful scrutiny before we make any release of the information, but that's becoming a fruitful exercise among many other things we're doing.
Wow. And as you said, John, all of this needs to continue to be investigated.
Yeah.
And none of this is definitive, but it's very clear that there certainly is evidence now. We certainly have multiple people who've come forward, who've signed affidavits, and they're suggesting that there is significant fraud. And John, if you could just, for all of our viewers at home, break down for everybody, who are these affidavits coming from? I know you and the team are looking through not just the affidavits we've mentioned here, but hundreds of these affidavits. Give our viewers a sense, if you would, please. Who are signing these affidavits? What are they saying? And just give us a sense for what's behind this.
Yep. So the majority of them are poll watchers, people that were sent to ensure the integrity of the election. And there's a long century history in all these states of a Republican and a Democrat jointly watching, agreeing a ballot is good or bad. Right. The majority of these affidavits come from people who just saw widespread misconduct or unusual behavior, concerning behavior, like unveiling the secrecy of a ballot to look and see who someone voted for, which they're not supposed to do. There were allegations that the security envelopes were destroyed. They have important identifiers on them. So the majority of them, there are a handful of city workers or poll workers that actually were working for the state as either contractors or poll workers, and some of them have come forward. I think the most important is Ms. Jacob. She clearly provides the most extensive claim of fraud and acknowledges she was part of it because her bosses ordered her to do these things. So if her story checks out, she becomes a very credible witness.
Awesome. And John, a last question, just in the last kind of minute or so that we have left. Today on your podcast on John Solomon Reports, you had on Vernon Jones from the state of Georgia. A lot of our viewers will remember that he's the Democrat who dared to support President Trump. And now in your podcast, it sounds like he believes that his own party, the Democrat Party, was actually responsible for orchestrating fraud. Tell us a little bit about what he says there.
Yeah, he's really adamant that over the last 6 months he saw the party leadership taking actions that suggested they were gearing up for some sort of fraudulent activity to try to overcome whatever success Donald Trump had at the polls. And as we know, Donald Trump collected more votes than any Republican in history nationally. And he believes the Democrats were creating operations to counter that. And when they couldn't counter it with original votes, he believes they stuffed the ballot box or came up with empty ballots. Now, again, a lot of his assumptions are based on these affidavits, other things. The key is people who have subpoena power, legislative committees, investigators, the FBI, they can get us the real answers. We hope they do soon.
Excellent. Well, we certainly hope that that people who have the power to do so continue to investigate. Again, we appreciate your team, the combination of team with Real America's Voice here, all of these journalists who are out there on the ground, reading these affidavits, making phone calls to voters. We appreciate you coming each night to give our viewers an update on this as well. Well, folks, we're going to be back in just a minute. We're going to be talking with Bruce Lavelle in the state of Georgia about what he's seeing there. Make sure you're letting all of your friends know that here at Real America's Voice, we're covering the stories the mainstream media so often wants to ignore. We'll be right back.